Many Allied soldiers of all ranks later spoke with admiration of the tenacity and valor with which many German units and individual soldiers fought to the end. One of these men was Adolf Hitler. His superiors and his fellow runners saw him as a brave soldier of great endurance and as a man who was exceptionally good at transmitting oral orders. Unlike the other messengers, he studied the headquarters maps, learning the safest route to go forward and frequently making accurate predictions about the course of battles and campaigns. By 1918, this combination of qualities and abilities had made an extraordinary impression on the professional soldiers who led his regiment. Lieutenant Colonel Engelhardt, the first of his regimental commanders who knew him, called Hitler an exceptionally brave, effective, and conscientious soldier, and his last commander, Lieutenant Colonel Maximilian Balagand, spoke of him as a courageous and outstanding soldier and comrade. Other regimental commanders and senior officers under whom he served used such phrases as exceptional courage, shining example, admirable unpretentiousness, profound love of country, and altogether upright and honorable nature. One lieutenant colonel summed it up: Hitler never let us down. Another soldier said of him, "The Austrian never relaxes. He always acts as if we'd lose the war if he weren't on the job every minute." While the other runners were discussing whose turn it was to take a message forward to a command post under fire, Hitler would put the message into the pouch on his belt and be gone. The recommendation for the Iron Cross, first class, signed by yet another of his regimental commanders, said in part, "As a runner, his coolness and dash in both trench and open warfare have been exemplary, and invariably, he has shown himself ready to volunteer for tasks in the most difficult situations and at danger to himself." Whenever communications have been disrupted at a critical moment in battle, it has been thanks to Hitler's unflagging and devoted efforts that important messages continued to get through despite every difficulty. Colonel Anton Tubayev, who made the presentation to Hitler for the Iron Cross First Class, further stated, "He was always ready to help out in any situation, always volunteered for the most difficult, the most arduous, and the most dangerous missions, and to risk his life and well-being for the fatherland. On a human level, I felt closer to him than to any of the other men." Colonel Walter Spatny, in command of the 16th Regiment, was no less affirmative. Hitler inspired all his comrades. They were impressed by his peerless courage and devotion to duty, particularly in combat. His qualifications, modesty, and his admirable sobriety earned him the greatest respect of his comrades and superiors alike. In 1922, at a time when Hitler was still unknown, General Friedrich Petz summarized the High Command's appreciation of the gallant and self-effacing corporal as follows: "Hitler was quick in mind and body and had great powers of endurance. His most remarkable qualities were the personal courage and daring which enabled him to face any combat or perilous situation whatsoever." None of the officers who reported Hitler's war record had at the time any other motivation than that of stating the truth. They were under no pressure and offered no advantage to state otherwise. That is why professional historians now base their evaluation of Hitler's war record on this wide selection of testimony from army records. Even the historians least favorable to Hitler, such as Joachim C. Fest, concedes that Hitler was a courageous and efficient soldier and was always a good comrade. Sebastian Haffner, a Jewish writer and a fanatical Hitler hater, was forced to admit that Hitler had a fierce courage unmatched by anyone at the time or since. He had distinguished himself within a regiment that spent 45 months in the front lines, being shuttled from one sector to another and fighting in 36 major battles. Other men lived for the chance to go home on leave. During 52 months of wartime service, Hitler availed himself of only a fraction of the leave time due him, taking 2 leaves of 14 days each. "The trenches around Fromelles were his world," men said, referring to the site of a terrible battle in the summer of 1915, and what lay behind them didn't exist for him. This was brought into high relief when Hitler was finally wounded on the Somme in October of 1916, a shell fragment slashing his upper left thigh. Men were praying for flesh wounds like this, injuries that would not cripple them, but would keep them away from the lines for several months. "It isn't so bad, Lieutenant, right?" Hitler said from his stretcher to his immediate superior, Fritz Wiedemann, the regimental adjutant, as they were readying him for the ambulance to the field hospital. "I can still stay with you, stay with the regiment, can't I?" Soon after Hitler was released from a hospital near Berlin and assigned to the regiment's replacement battalion in Munich, he wrote to Wiedemann, asking him to expedite his return to the front, and Wiedemann obliged, sending a telegram requesting the immediate shipment of Hitler to his unit. During the ghastly fighting along the Somme in which he participated in 1916, the headquarters of German regiments adopted the practice of sending out 6 runners at a time with identical messages, on the theory that one of them would probably get through. A total of 3,754 men of the List regiment died during the war. Death surrounded Hitler for more than 1,000 days, and the ways in which he avoided it were uncanny. Adolf Hitler was to continue this perilous work until the last weeks of the war.